Welcome to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with producer Aldini Iwani. Our special guest today is Henry Varela from ID My Athlete. And Henry, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show. Along with producer
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to today's interview.
You know, Henry, you and I, it's funny how sports connections are made.
Thank you so much for having me on the calendar. I'm looking forward to today's interview.
For a place that we both, kind of work at. I don't work there yet, but you were helping me with that last week. You got to talking about ID My Athlete, and you coming on to talk about that. And you know, Henry, it's a different time in 2022 than it was in 1976. You know, however they recruited, hit the road, get a hotel, go watch. I don't even know if they had film then. They had their notes, right? They had their notes. Recruiting and identifying athletes is way different these days, right? Way different. Recruiting and how you came up with it. You do a number. against it for some reasons. But remember, some of these coaches that might have been against it are pulling in $5-6 million a year. You know, right? This has been going on for years. Chris Webber, back in the day at Michigan, they were selling his jersey, and he's trying to get gas money. He can't even eat on the weekend, right? Ed O'Bannon from UCLA had a lawsuit against using his likeness, right? So it's been good, I think, for college athletes. I think, right? Some of them struggled for many years. Talk about how the NIL is changing the game.
The game quite a bit, and for these high school athletes and specific college athletes, right, like you said, all of these different athletes who ran into some major issues and had major Heisman trophies taken away from them and different things. And where this is, yeah, and where this has changed the game, I think a lot of times too for these kids is that we have a lot of good kids, especially in New Mexico, right, where if they get the chance to go to school and as a student athlete, if they don't have time to work because they're on the field, they're on the court, whatever they're doing, and they have good character, they're people that businesses in the community really want to utilize them and not only benefit their business but benefit the athlete. Kids are able now to make a little bit of money while they're going to school and doing the sport that they love, but in the same time, be able to bring in a little extra money. And I think that's been tremendous. And I think one of the things that we're really working on our end too is to work with, because I do marketing for a living, but work with some of these other experts or attorneys who are really familiar with the NIL process and how do we better educate our athletes and our parents about what this is. What is the process? Can a business just give you $500 just to give you $500? What are the guidelines? And every state has different laws around the NIL. So even though the NCAA allows it, can you do it while you're in high school? Not all states allow you to do that, but you can do it in college. So how does that work? Who do you need to contact? So it's changing the game a lot, and you hear a lot of negatives, you hear a lot of positives, but I think it's one of those things that our athletes need to take advantage of. But we want to make sure that they're educated and they do things the right way so that they can follow NCAA and state guidelines.
Well, it's a funny thing, right? Because again, the NIL just came to play about a year ago, I believe. It wasn't too long ago. And remember one thing: CBS pays how many billion for the rights to broadcast the NCAA March Madness, right? Uh, Someone's making some money somewhere. Nick Saban, how much does he make? And you look again, the resume says, right, they should make that kind of money. So the coaches are pretty well comped, I believe, at the major college level. And so I'm glad the NIL became available. When I read that about Chris Webber, I couldn't believe that. The guy can't even get any, he's struggling, can't even find any food to eat, but they're selling his jersey in the library over there in Michigan and making a lot of money off of it, and he can't get anything. So I think the NIL has been good for the sport, or college sports, and kids can make some money, and I think that's good. Why should their likeness, if they're selling it, why shouldn't they get something out of it? I think the other thing, Henry, I want to ask you about, and this is always something about New Mexico. Now, Exodus airs. He's going to New Hampshire, right? And Corley, his dad, Corley Ayers, is a very good friend of mine, very good friend. And that's a tough decision, right? Exodus wanted to stay here. His teammates are all at La Cueva, man. Of course, he wanted to stay here, but the offer that he got in New Hampshire, he could not pass that up. So one of the things they've always said about New Mexico athletes, they're not going to get the looks that a lot of other athletes are. How is ID my athlete?
So one of the main things with ID My Athlete, full scholarship, right? It's a tool to help you navigate. They got to make their calls. you know, these athletes got to make their calls, they got to make their emails, they got to do everything that they're, you know, needing to do. But, you know, one of the other aspects of ID My Athlete where we're really looking to push out our kids, and like you said, New Mexico, really aiming to help New Mexico kids, I think was our first and foremost thing with ID My Athlete. And but we have athletes from, you know, different parts of the country as well. But one of the other things is social media. So we have social media pages that with our athletes who are part of ID My Athlete, anytime they do anything good on the field, classroom, community, anything that they're doing that's really personifying their character and who they are, what we do is we'll create them graphics, we'll do posts on our social media platforms, and we'll get that out. You know, we're starting to build our social media where coaches are starting to follow and get that out. The other thing that we have found, especially when talking to parents and kids, is one of the biggest things is in order for college coaches to become aware of them, there's got to be a marketing aspect. You've got to put yourself out, because there's always going to be somebody who can dribble, you know, somebody who's fast, somebody who's strong. There's thousands of these kids out there. So how are you separating yourself, right? But one of the things that parents and kids always hate is they hate to just brag upon themselves. They hate to do 100 posts just about themselves and feel like it's just about them. So what we really find is when we do posts for these kids and create graphics, there's a large sharing component to it, which has made it easier.
That's even better. That's even better. And we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about ID My Athlete after these messages on the Sports Desk.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we got to take a break. When we come back.
Of ProView Networks.
These are more than just the sounds of a safe place to go after school. These are the sounds of interest being making an impact. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we don't do just one. Great futures start here.
Out, it needs to be replaced. We're gonna do it right, put a smile on your face. There at home, things are looking up when you get your roof done by someone you can trust. Dream Style, a company name that's been around forever. No one does it better. You need a new roof, you know who to call. Dream Style Roofing tops them all.
Rudy's is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
For 50 years, Clark's Pet Emporium has been your pet's favorite stop. Fish, birds, cats, dogs, reptiles, and small animals. Clark's has built a tradition of friendly, knowledgeable service focused on affordable, quality pet care products and food. Locally owned and operated with 2 convenient locations for all your pet needs, including an extensive selection of gifts for both owners and pets. 11200 Manal Northeast or 4914 Lomas Northeast. Clark's Pet Emporium is celebrating 50 years. Thank you, Albuquerque, the pet supply superstore. ClarksPets.com.
Turbo Threads is a proud sponsor of ProView Networks.
Almost 30 years of experience means fast service, great prices, and a wide selection of apparel from t-shirts to performance sport shirts, even jackets and hats. They feature low minimums and no setup charges on most orders. Turbo Threads is located at 1503 Golf Course Road in Rio Rancho, or find them on Facebook, online at turbothreads.com, or call 999-1234 for Turbo Threads.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. Our special guest today is Henry Varela, ID My Athlete. And, you know, Henry, a great discussion in the first segment. You mentioned how some of these ID My Athlete is again, a different way to market the athlete, a different way. And you just said it. You can put out tape film. You have to have some natural talent, right? You have to have some talent for sure. So it's a different way that schools are looking too, right? They're looking at websites. How has the response been from other schools and colleges? Even if you do professional athletes too, how's the response been about ID My Athlete? How's the response been?
You know, the response has been really good. And I think over this last year and a half to 2 years that we've really, you know, started putting it out, you know, because we've tried to do this in a methodical way in terms of not just blasting it out so fast and furious, you know, and not have things going right, to where we could really work to build it in a way and get feedback and make adjustments and such. And, you know, I'll use my daughter for an example. You know, June 15th came, and because she was, you know,
There's
a rising
pictures right there. Anyway, keep going, Henry.
Yeah, she's you know, a rising junior. And when the coaches contacted her and she talked to him on the phone, they told her, thank you so much for sending that website, because it made us so easy for us to look at your information, go back and view highlights. A lot of times I think student athletes don't realize either is you might be initially talking to an assistant coach who's ahead of recruiting, but then maybe the head coach hasn't seen your information or anything as well. So, you know, we did get a comment as it was so easy to just send your link to the head coach so that, you know, they could now look at your videos and highlights, and, you know, where we're not digging through emails and trying to find, you know, different things. So, you know, we've had a lot of positive feedback. And I think as we go through and do this, we just want to continue to grow and expand in ways that just kind of, like I said, you know, we know times change, coaches are looking for different things. So we encourage coaches to contact us and let us know, you know, what are things that or information that we could put on our websites for our athletes that'll really help them to get more information.
Talk about your daughter, Leah Varela, entering her third year at IMG Academy in Florida, was going to play at Rio Rancho. What was the decision? She's very talented. You don't go out there and play at IMG unless you've got some real talent, right? Talk a little bit. There's your daughter right there, and I'm glad we have a picture of her. That's great. That's awesome. Talk a little bit about her, because, you know, it's hard on the family for her to be away, but she's pursuing a dream, right? She's pursuing something out there. And again, you don't go out there unless you have some exceptional talent. Talk about your daughter.
Yeah. So, you know, come, what was it, early 2020 when COVID started, you know, hitting everybody, we were getting ready to go to Iceland with her as part of the U.S. Youth Soccer Olympic Development Team. And that got shut down because COVID had hit. And we had a kid at home who was craving the sport that she loved, and that was soccer. And, you know, that May of that year, we got a call from the IMG Academy saying, we saw you play in Florida about 4 months ago. We love you. We'd love to have you guys come down for a visit, and we'd love for you to attend the IMG Academy and play soccer here. And, you know, not us knowing exactly COVID's raging, not sure what we were going to do. We took a 26-hour drive to Florida, to Bradenton, Florida, to view the campus and talk to the coaches. And we were blown away. I mean, stepping on that campus is like stepping on a top tier Division I college, you know, campus, with the resources and from the schooling to everything we have there. And, you know, Leah ended up starting school there in August of that year. And the young lady has not looked back once. She's thriving there. She's one of the top players on the team. The first year they were there, the team made the national championship game for the Girls Academy League. They did lose in the final. She had the only goal for her team. You know, it's just been a great road. She's been named one of the top 32 players in her conference out of Florida. So this is a New Mexico girl who was thriving in New Mexico, goes to Florida to the IMG Academy, which is a bigger spotlight, a lot more college coaches who go to their practices there, which you don't see that here when you have Division I Power 5 schools actually going to your practices there. and she's just thriving. We've heard numerous times from the coaches to the heads of the direct soccers that she's the hardest worker on campus and that she's the most fit kid on campus. And that's something that she really takes pride on and something that's helped propel her.
You got to be very proud. Now, let me ask you this: the separation anxiety, and that's hard, right? How often do you get to go out there and watch, or is there games online? How does that work?
I got to tell you, Ed, that's probably been the toughest part, right? Is not, being used to going to every single game every weekend and then losing that, right? So all of her games are recorded, but the hard part is that a lot of times we don't get the game for a day or two. So we already know what the outcome was, and then we get to watch, a day or two later. But just the ability to get to see her at that point is, it's almost like like you said, some of that anxiety, separation anxiety, it makes it tough. But the thing that I think as a parent with my wife and I that has also kind of helped with us and then my daughter is, especially because of the type of player she is and everything, is it's really helped her to grow away from us, both on the athletic field and personally. So, I always tell people this: if we didn't have FaceTime nowadays, I don't know if we would have sent her away. So having FaceTime has allowed us to talk to her 2 to 3 times a day, which has made that separation that much easier for us. But it's still difficult. It's, but it's definitely been, it's hard to believe it's already been over 2 years.
And that's time goes so quick. Let's talk a little bit more about ID My Athlete. You mentioned some of the other things in doing podcasts, helping athletes to learn how to be interviewed, right? And I think that's one of the things that if they're going to go to college and excel, the interviews are going to happen eventually. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, once again, the whole aspect of ID My Athlete was, how do we better market our athletes and help them better market themselves, right? There's nothing, and my daughter, found this out, is when you get a call from a coach, they're paying attention to how you talk to them. They're paying attention to your message. Are you able to sell yourself? Are you able to, just talk about different things about your family? So one of the things we wanted to do is we started our own podcast, which is just through our website. And we've done a couple already with a couple of our athletes. One a young man who's just starting with Fort Lewis this year. He's an All-American soccer player, great young man, Caden Schuft. And then we have one with Jordan Candelaria, who committed to the University of Cincinnati. Here we got these New Mexico kids who are, being successful. And we did 20 to 30-minute podcasts. And our big thing was to really teach them to get out of their comfort zone. Can you answer questions about yourself? Can you clearly define? And a lot of what I do too is I work with them before we do this to help prep them. How can they better explain themselves? Different things like that, because to me, that's going to be an important part, not only for their sport, but in life, when they're looking to get jobs, when they're looking to do other things. So that's, anything that we can do for these athletes, we're going to try to do. And that's why, one more thing I'll tell you is that we work with partners like we work with Vera Jo Bustos, who's another New Mexico athlete who is in the Adams State Hall of Fame with basketball, was a former professional basketball player. She's a mentality training now. We want athletes to have access to that training. We also have people who can take athletic photographs. So we can do press releases. There's a lot of different things that we're really working to help these athletes aside from the website.
How do you feel my ID My Athlete's going to keep growing? Have you seen potential for growth? I'm sure you have. Things change, right? Things change in any marketing field. That's what you do for a living. Have you seen any potential for growth down the line? I'm sure you have.
Let's just say the more we talk about it and with the things that we're expanding, we know this thing can get large very quick. And that's why I think initially we've really worked to, do it in a way where we can make sure we're giving the athletes the attention that they need. And as we get more word of mouth and everything going, we're getting a lot of athletes that are interested. And like I said, we have a full boat of services to really help athletes with, marketing and, just different things to kind of help them. Because maybe you have an athlete who maybe did something on their own that they have and they're comfortable using, but maybe they need video highlights done. maybe they need something else, you know. So we want to be able to be there as a one-stop shop, that if they need anything to help them out, we can be there to help them.
So it encompasses a lot of things. Now, two more questions. We've got to wrap this up. You deal with other athletes besides New Mexican athletes, or is it just primarily New Mexico athletes, but you deal with others as well?
You know, a lot of what we've been doing is with New Mexico athletes initially, especially because of, you know, like we've talked about, it's a lot tougher for our athletes in New Mexico to be seen by some of these coaches who would rather go to California, Arizona, Florida, you know, different areas, Texas, to see these kids. But we have been fortunate enough. We have another young lady out of IMG Academy named Chloe Shimkin, who's just a tremendous soccer player. Her sister's on the U.S. Youth National Team. She's playing at the University of Texas, and her sister Chloe is a tremendous star in her own right. And so we have something with her, and we've gotten inquiries from, you know, lacrosse athletes from different states and basketball. And so, you know, it is something that's growing, and it's something
quite a bit.
Yeah, that we want to, you know, with the whole college and professional, we're slowly getting into that as well. But ultimately, anybody who needs help getting their name out there, you know, marketing themselves, we're here to do that for them.
One last question, Henry, before we wrap it up. Give us your the information where people need to contact you if they're interested in ID My Athlete. Let us know.
Yeah, so definitely the first thing I'd invite people to do is, you know, go to idmyathlete.com. You'll get a lot of information on the services we offer. You can see some of the websites that we've already done. My email address is in there. If you want to contact me, and if you have any questions, anything about ID My Athlete, or any services or anything we can help you with, definitely follow ID My Athlete. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts. Follow us there, because not only do the follows help us, but we have a very good understanding of how social media works and how it benefits these athletes, and how information can be shared and how it hits coaches. So the more people we get following our accounts, the more that our athletes' information is going to be shared. So if there's anything, even if you see this and you don't have an athlete, follow our social media accounts, like our posts about these athletes, and help us spread the word about our kids.
Henry Varela, ID My Athlete, we sure appreciate you being our guest. A lot of great information. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate your support, and thank you again. Have a good rest of your day.
You bet. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.